we're doing it.
Yeah, I see it now. We look like we're live.
Okay, cool. Welcome everyone to this week's Tuesday Live. Got to make sure that I'm actually recording it as well, which would be very helpful.
All the
Yeah.
steps with
All
technology.
the steps, yeah.
I see
Welcome.
recording, I see live.
Very good. Cool. So welcome everybody to this week's Tuesday Live. As ever, celebrating the power of choice, because remember, we all do have the power to choose the thoughts we think, the feelings we feel, and then the actions that we take. So I've been super excited to be joined by the lovely Michelle, who's going to be talking to us about mindfulness, a word that gets bounded around all of the time. And we were talking because Michelle is a fellow coach, so also a lawyer, and specifically helps fellow lawyers and athletes really just elevate their mindset. And I'll let Michelle talk more about specifically what she does, but she's tuning in from the beautiful Colorado. And so here it's looking very warm where you are. It's a bit warm in Europe, but I'll hand it over to you. Welcome, Michelle, and thank you for joining me for this week.
Oh, thank you so much for asking. And first of all, as I've told you before, thank you so much for just how you're putting yourself out there and really, really trying to speak to people to give them that power of choice. So yeah, I'm really happy and humbled to be here and in your sphere, in your power. I love it.
Well, we've said a lot, like energy attracts like energy. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's so many of us that just want to help people, right? And know that we get a buzz to do that. So no, it's great. I think
Yeah.
I thank IPEC for introducing me to my kind of international family, of which you are very much a part. So I love that.
Yeah. Isn't that
Cool.
amazing? I would have never thought a year ago, kind of when I started my journey, that I would have connections all over the world, which just
Yeah.
blows my mind. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm so grateful for
absolutely.
that.
No, I love that. Cool. Well, yeah, speaking of which, then, would you like to tell the beautiful people of Facebook a little bit about yourself and kind of, I guess, a route to like your journey, as you've mentioned, into what you're
Yeah.
doing now?
Yeah. So, let me try and condense this as much as I can. Yeah, I now live in Colorado, which you can't see. I'm in my office right now. It was super windy outside today. And I've lived in Colorado for about 4 years. And prior to that, I lived in Washington, D.C., or just in Northern Virginia, and worked in Washington, D.C. As a lawyer. And I'm still a lawyer and approaching almost 20 years now for the federal government here in the United States. So, and I'm born and raised originally in Nebraska, so right next door to Colorado. So it's nice to kind of be back closer to family in Nebraska. So throughout my legal career, I was, I think, very much that sort of type A lawyer or litigator, particularly a lot of courtroom time that people sort of think of when they think of lawyers, that very high strung, very aggressive kind of lawyer. And about 8 years ago, I started really questioning my purpose and my path in life and my journey and where I really wanted to be, which was due in large part to the fact that my mom passed away suddenly of a heart attack when she was very young at the age of 58, just past midnight one night in her office by herself, doing the job that she loved. And that really was a slap in the face for a number of reasons, including that my mom was my best friend and biggest champion.
Mm.
And also started really making me think, do I want to be that? Do I want to be in my office alone one night and have something kind of bring me down, take me down like that? So, long story short, I had been meditating a little bit and then really started more diligently after she passed away, like in 2012. And once I moved to Colorado and really started wondering, there's something more that I'm meant to be doing here.
Mm.
Just being a lawyer was not, I didn't feel like my full purpose and how I could truly be serving people and
Mm.
showing up for myself and other people every day. And so I became aware of this 2-year mindful meditation teacher certification program through Tara Brock and Jack Cornfield, who are sort of the two of the Western leaders in mindfulness meditation, and enrolled in that course in February of last year. And then shortly after that, enrolled in the coaching program through IPAC and became a certified coach then in, I think, April or March of this year. And I'll hopefully graduate. I should graduate from the 2-year mindfulness program next February and have my certification. So I've been teaching meditation, guiding meditation, actually, I prefer to say, at work to some of my colleagues during the week. And then also now through the business that I'm setting up. And so I've combined the mindfulness training and the coaching training because they fit so perfectly together in terms of raising your awareness so that we can all kind of elevate our mindsets toward the true purpose, the true path that we want to be on and maybe haven't allowed ourselves to step foot toward yet. And so I combine both of those disciplines and teachings together to serve my clients.
No, I love that, Michelle. And I think, isn't it so interesting that often it takes like a crisis or something that kind of smacks us awake, shakes us awake, to kind of signal that question of actually there's another way, or there's another way of living in life, or another option. Sounds like that really happened with your mum passing.
Yeah, and that just gave me goosebumps actually as you say that. And I think that's so true and common for so many people. It's like the universe or whatever higher power you believe in is sort of always knocking at your door. And yet on the other side of the door, or maybe simultaneously knocking on the door, is society and all of the conditioning and expectations that we're raised with. And that knock always, in my experience anyway, was louder than the knock, the silent, quiet knock of the universe saying, hey, I'm here. Are you going to listen? And then finally the universe is like, I'm really going to make you listen to me. And that's what it takes for some people. And for me, that was sort of my bottom, that period after my mom passed away. And for, people experience that differently, whatever their sort of bottom is that wakes them up.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, how in hindsight you realize, you don't think it at the time, but you realize that actually it's for your greatest good, generally speaking, and that even though it's a tragic situation, often it can actually show up as, like you say, it's like opening that locked door to kind of something where it lets all the light in, that you kind of go, well, actually here's the life that you could be living more of that you're currently not. And I know something that because I follow Tara Brach a lot and love her teachings, and it sticks in my mind because she talks about suffering being a signal of an unmet need.
Yes.
And I think it's that beautiful analogy that you've just mentioned, that knocking it's actually just a signal. It's not there to distress you, it's there to try and communicate with you, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's so beautiful that you mentioned that, because as Tara teaches and as the mindfulness teachings remind us that these are ancient wisdom traditions. And so they've been true for humans since humans have been around. And our bodies are so intelligent. And so it's no small thing when we start to experience stress, anxiety. For me, it's usually tightness in the chest. Or for some people, it might be insomnia or other physical illnesses that I believe, in at least in part, are your body's intelligence, your body's way of telling you we need to course correct. That you are out of alignment, you aren't doing what really feeds your soul. So I'm going to keep trying to get your attention. And unfortunately, again, for some people, that can take a while and go to a really dark place. So yeah, I think the more we can sort of remind ourselves that it's our bodies are telling us something, and that's what mindfulness invites us to do, is to come into the body, which is our connection to the present moment, and really start listening to what our bodies are trying to tell us.
No, I love that. And it is that beautiful analogy, isn't it, of kind of the universe's messages will just keep getting louder and louder or more obvious. So it's like, well, you've ignored all of these. Now I'm going to send you something you cannot ignore.
Yeah. And that reminds me, there's a beautiful equation, for lack of a better word, that I love to pass along to people that I learned. And I forget the Buddhist monk who sort of originally came up with this. His name is escaping me, but oftentimes people hear the message that in Buddhist philosophies that life is suffering, and that's
Mm,
actually a mistranslation. It's actually that life is pain.
mm,
And so the equation that I love to pass along is that suffering equals pain times resistance.
mm,
So we know we're going to have pain in life. What is optional and what I love about what you do on Tuesdays is that choice that we
mm,
have
mm,
in how much suffering are we going to experience with that pain.
mm,
And oftentimes our suffering is increased exponentially by the resistance to the pain. So
mm,
just mathematically speaking, if you have a painful event and your painful event is like 10 and you're resisting it times 10, your suffering is 100%. Whereas
mm.
if you can, maybe you can't make the pain go away. Like in my example, I can't make the death of my mother go away, but I can start to resist that less,
Mm.
therefore decreasing my suffering in response to that event.
Yeah.
So that's just I think that's sort of an empowering notion to keep in the back of people's minds, and fitting with what you try and talk about here in the power of choice.
Yeah. And what we'll go on to discuss, because like to your point, it's almost this surrender. It's this counterintuitive because we're so scared, a lot of us, and we've been brought up to kind of not feel all of, especially the dark feelings, right? To kind of sticky plaster them or band-aid them or numb them, distract ourselves. But actually the reverse is true, like you say, is actually to stop resisting, to stop kind of like no, and instead embrace that actually we're built for this, we're built for turbulence.
Yes, yes, like amen to that, like 10 times over. And it is so hard because it's understandable. People have the reaction, how am I supposed to embrace this tragic event, this death of
Mm,
somebody, this racism, this COVID? How am I supposed to embrace that? And without going too far down the rabbit hole with that, what mindfulness reminds us is that yes, we are human and we are built, as you said, for all of it, because we can, mindfulness allows the space to embrace all of that,
mm,
recognizing that it's everything is temporary.
mm.
And even when we're experiencing something painful, when we can come into the body and know that and trust and recognize that that painful sensation even might have a tight hard center,
Mm,
and if you explore it, it just kind of, it starts to change even in the body, so that
mm,
clear down in your toes, you're experiencing a different sensation. So you can really start to learn to embrace all of it, because without the sadness, we wouldn't know joy.
mm,
Without grief, we wouldn't know,
mm.
happiness. So yes, as humans, we can allow space for all of it.
Yeah, no, I love how you describe that, and this has very much been my personal journey and continues to be, as I've kind of do more practices where the mind body connection is so powerful, and it feels. I remember like 6 years ago, think we're being quite skeptical on the whole esoteric woo woo energy stuff of like, is that even a thing? Like, oh, what a load of hooey,
Yeah.
but actually as you entertain it and as you try it, it's like you experience it and I think you feel it, then that's when I think we're all, generally speaking, this is a sweeping statement, we're all stuck in our heads, aren't we?
Mm, absolutely. Yeah. That we call it, or at least I've heard Tara Brock call it, our mental control tower in our
Yes. Oh my
heads,
God, that's powerful. Yeah.
where we think we can control everything.
Mm,
And in reality, all we can control is our response, our reaction. And I
yeah.
can't remember the exact quote, but Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and author and psychiatrist, has this beautiful quote about trying to find that space, the pause between the what's happening and your reaction. And that's really all we have control over,
Yeah.
is creating that space for our
Mm.
reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, completely. It's the grace and space. And I think that's probably why
Mm-hmm.
we've come away from that so much because, and I know I've shared it with you, Michelle, like before COVID, we were all suffering from the busy being busy disease. And I think when you're constantly running on that hamster wheel, it keeps you in your head because it doesn't you don't allow that space often for you to come into your body and to experience life from a different perspective.
Yeah. And I think and I'm totally maybe speaking out of turn here, but from my experience as a white woman raised in the United States, I feel that is the conditioning that we've received in terms of separating the head from the heart. Especially if you want to succeed and, be successful and climb the corporate ladder or whatever it is, you're operating from your head. And yet what Jack Kornfield, my other teacher, has reminded us is that, and I don't know this, I don't speak Asian, but he has said, according to him, that in Asian languages, the word for head and heart, or mind and heart, are actually the same word. And I think we have, so I'm going to take that as true. We'll assume it is. Maybe somebody who speaks that language can let me know. But I just think the sentiment behind that is really beautiful, that it is all one, and we've really sort of cut it off.
We've severed that connection, isn't it? Because I know a lot where within IPEC, where we both kind of did our coach training, it talks about holographic thinking, and it's almost like, even in itself, it's kind of holographic thinking, sensing, feeling, like all in one, that we actually, there's so much more to us that we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I could talk to you for like days on end about that, especially in terms of what, just planting the seed, what if we actually started to think from our heart space instead of from the head space? And really that's, for me, what mindfulness can help cultivate is really listening to that intuition, which I believe in Rumi, the poet, has so many of his poems around this, that the real intelligence lies in that heart space. And so if we can really listen to that heart space, that intelligence, and have that feed the brain, wow, think of the possibilities if we were to think from that space as opposed to up here.
Because if you like, from a branding exercise, it's almost like the heart's being done a massive disservice. Like, we get almost told that the heart is just about romance and that's about it. And it pumps, it keeps us alive. But then the head's just so much more complex and interesting, when actually, a fact I heard recently is that when we're a fetus, our heart actually is created first before our brain. And I just think, well, that's quite interesting. And the fact that our electromagnetic fields, like our heart on its own has an electromagnetic field, and actually the power of the emotion is huge, and that is definitely something that we underutilize.
Absolutely. Oh man, yeah, this like just opens up such a can of like rainbow worms. It's awesome because yes, that's so true. Like the heart is intelligent, and it's energy. I mean, that's not woo woo. That's science. That's quantum physics. That is measurable electromagnetic field coming from your heart. And so what I like to tell people, to kind of like bring it down to a relatable level, is that when you walk into a room or you meet somebody, and sometimes we say, her vibe was off, or I just didn't really hit it off with them. That's an energetic thing. That's not woo woo. That's not in your head. That's in this space. And so what if there was a practice where we could actually learn to connect to that heart space more? I wonder what that can be.
I wonder what that is. That's perfect segue. And before we go into that segue, lovely Lou, who's just joined us, thanks for watching. She said that kokora, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Japanese, means heart, mind, mentality, emotions, and feeling in Chinese characters. So thank you, Lou, for that.
Thank you for that. Oh, that just, yes, truth bumps. Thank you
truth
for
bumps.
Yes.
By the way, I've written down, you've opened up a kind of rainbow worms. I'm still having that now.
That was true. That just came to me. That was the universe. Like, let's put a new spin on the can of worms. It's rainbow worms. It's so
rainbow worms and truth bumps. It's not goosebumps. Yes. It's truth bumps.
Yes.
Both of those.
Thank you for that. What is the kokora?
Kokora.
Okay.
I think.
Thank you.
If I'm pronouncing that correctly. But so if we segue then into what is mindfulness anyway? Like, if you were to kind of drill it down and to really describe what it is, because I know it gets talked around a lot, but from your perspective, what is that?
Yes, thank you. So I'll try and distill this down. I should have a pithier way of describing this. But we all know meditation. Heard meditation, maybe practice meditation. Meditation is really this deliberate training of our awareness. And there are different types of meditation. There's prayer, mantras, TM, devotional practices, visualizations. Mindfulness is a type of meditation. And what mindfulness is and what mindful meditation is paying attention in a particular way to the present moment without judgment. So, just to unpack that a little bit, the paying attention in a particular way is what we call, what Tara Brach and Jack Kornfield teaches. We think of it as two wings of a bird. So, there's the paying attention in a particular way wing, which is the awareness wing. And that means typically, and there are different ways to do this, but typically finding an anchor point in the body, which is usually the breath. Or if the breath isn't comfortable for you, some other sensation, maybe in your fingers or toes, or even if you, if coming into the body is challenging, focusing on a noise like a bird chirping or the background noise of the air conditioner, some anchor point that you can pay attention to. So that's the awareness wing. And then the paying attention without judgment, the without judgment is the compassion wing. So, and that we need both to have balance, because you could really be paying attention and still judging a lot of things. And let me just say, with that non-judgmental, with the compassion piece, we're humans. We judge everything that we don't even realize. We walk outside and we think, oh, it's crappy rainy day, or oh, it's sunny, warm. That's a judgment right there. So if you think about it, thoughts probably wouldn't even register with us if there wasn't some underlying judgment. So it's not about completely removing the judgment or clearing your mind of thoughts at all. It's about, again, training that awareness on an anchor point. And when you've noticed that your awareness wanders, which it's going to do because you're human, I mean, not even monks are like clear their mind of thoughts. When you notice that your mind has wandered, without judging where it's wandered to or the fact that you've kind of wandered off, just bringing the awareness back to that anchor point. And that's it. That's really mindfulness. Like once you are aware that your mind has wandered, that's a moment of mindfulness right there. That's the victory. And then you just bring it back without the judgment and you begin again. And if you have to do that 10 times or 10,000 times in a formal sitting practice or throughout your day, you always, the breath, that anchor is always there for you to just begin again. So that's sort of the simple explanation for
I love that.
meditation.
I think that was pithy enough. It definitely was. Thank you. And it always helps. And I love the analogy of a bird and the wings. So this awareness piece of, and it's funny because when I first started kind of trying to meditate, I think you're right. It's almost this, people have this belief that, oh, it's to clear your mind. And then that's when people go, well, I'm failing miserably because I'm not managing to do it. But it's like anything, isn't it? It's a muscle, and you're actually training your mind to focus and to give attention onto something. And I think because we live our lives so distracted all of the time, that muscle for a lot of us is kind of a bit weak, and it kind of needs strengthening.
And that's why it's a practice. There's no endpoint with mindfulness. It's like enlightenment. It's a journey. There's no endpoint. So it's helpful, I think, for people, especially beginners, to remember there's no wrong way to practice mindfulness. There's no right way to practice mindfulness. I mean, it's sort of finding the posture, the time of day, the amount of time, the anchor, like it's finding what works for you and creates an invitation for you to come into the present moment as best you can, even if it's just for a fraction of a second. And then you come into it again, and then you come into it again. Like it's that practice. And yes, the more you do it, the more you'll be able to sort of stay in that space, and the more you can create the space for your reactions. Because I love to give a traffic example, because it's a practice for me to work on my aggressive driving. So I noticed that when I am practicing mindfulness, my reaction time between honking or giving somebody the bird in traffic is greatly reduced or doesn't happen at all. Because what happens is I'm aware of what's coming up inside me, of the angst. I'm aware of it. I notice it. I recognize that I'm judging the person or I'm judging myself, and I say, okay, I noticed the judgment, and then I bring it back into the body. And so that's just a simple example of how I don't have to beat myself up for honking at somebody or getting angry at them. I just raise that awareness.
I love that, because it's so beautifully simple. And I think that's where we trip ourselves up because we tell ourselves, well, it can't be that simple. It's got to be more complicated than that. But it's not, is it? It's I just wanted to rip off the back of that and say that for me, and this is for me a daily practice of, I often feel like I have out of body moments, out of body experiences where I'm kind of, I have a reaction, or I'm about to react, or I'm in the middle of a reaction. And then it's almost like this inner me kind of goes "Roop," and then looks at me and kind of like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it's like, oh, you're quite angry right now, aren't you? Yeah, I really am. Okay. Why? And then you like kind of almost create that, and it's quite comedic. Like I maybe sometime maybe want to create some kind of comedy around this, but it is to be able to then create, like you say, space between the fact that you are not your reaction. It's just that it's there and you have a choice. So when you like, you know, in that angry state behind the wheel and you notice, what do you do then? Just so
Yeah,
then
and
people
thank
can
you for
get
that. And that your talking hand thing, that's so beautiful. That's the perfect image, because that's the observer. It's recognizing that we can be both the observer and the observee.
Yeah,
Who's being
experience
observed? I don't.
the
So
experiencing.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, when I like in traffic, or just even, you know, in a call with a, since I'm still practicing law, opposing counsel or a client, whatever it might be, whenever you're noticing that coming up, it's again just noticing it, the awareness piece, and allowing for it. And there's a quick practice that I can take you through too, that that is cultivated through the formal practice, and then with practice you can learn to implement
Yes,
it more
please.
informally. But it's sort of recognizing that, allowing for whatever's there, not judging myself, not saying, well, you're a nasty person for thinking that. When we do that, that's what we call a second arrow that we're shooting at ourselves with the self-judgment. And then maybe I take the same action. Maybe I still honk at the person or yell at the opposing counsel, but at least I've created the space. And maybe I take a different action, but it's creating that awareness and just that pause to say, okay, this is what's coming up for me. And now I choose this reaction, whatever that reaction might be.
Yeah. Just reminding yourself that you don't have to just react and not think about it, because that's when, and I often think of like almost an emotion like anger being like a big wave, and that it just kind of comes over you and it just envelops you, and then you're powerless to it. And so it's almost about that mindfulness, is being able to have that wave come, but actually it doesn't then knock you to your feet. You can kind of allow it, or maybe just enable you with real practice to soften that wave and to say, well, the wave's going to come, fine, but actually I don't have to get taken out by it. I do have other options.
Yeah, it's the conscious choice, because there are times, and this is one thing I want to leave people with for sure, is mindfulness does not make you weak or passive or a pushover or anything like that, because again, it's allowing for the full range of human experience. And so there are times when an angry reaction is appropriate, but it's about consciously choosing to have an angry reaction to address a situation. Or as you said, maybe still a little anger, but toning it down a little bit. So it's just creating that conscious choice, as you said, as opposed to just knee-jerk anger reaction. Because there are situations that are served by different emotions and different reactions.
Yeah, no, I love that you brought that up, because I think that's certainly as well a belief that I used to have. I definitely did, about meditation being passive, and that, oh, well, you just accept, like acceptance to me used to mean, oh, you just agree with it all. Well, that's not right. But it's not about that. It's actually that we are all one, and it's accepting of what is, but then shifting to that choice space, that actually this is a learning for us. This is a learning for all of us. And actually, if we just viewed everything that happens as information, as neutral information, and that we then have a choice of how we discern and how we navigate through that, then that's the difference between being at the effective life, or actually kind of going, well, you know, all chaos can surround me, but I can actually have a choice whether I actually be part of the chaos or to observe the chaos and for it to still be okay.
Yeah, beautifully said. And that brings up, it comes back to that compassion piece, which again, people might hear compassion, think passivity. But compassion is actually empathy and wise action. So
Mm,
you can have empathy for someone and sort of feel their feelings or what's coming up for them, but that's just empathy. Compassion is really having the empathy and then taking action.
mm,
So that's what I really love about the compassion wing, is that it's not just sitting on your laurels.
mm,
It's if you see an injustice, it's having the empathy and then taking
mm,
action from a conscious place and from a
mm,
place of compassion to address it. So again, and there's thousands of studies actually about how compassion for yourself and others builds resilience and builds that kind of wise action
mm,
that we could all really benefit from.
mm, mm. I love that, because you've just triggered a thought in my mind. And it's something that you were talking about before, in obviously you being a litigator, and often in the workplace. And I know I experienced this for me, that I worked in quite a masculine industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, or having the belief, that my soft skills, my emotional intelligence, was a weakness, and that it wouldn't get
Yeah.
me anywhere, when actually now I see it now as a complete strength. And I
Mm.
think a lot of the time it can be labeled as a weakness, and it's not. It's both masculine and feminine energies that both serve a purpose, but one is not weak and one is not strong. They have strong and weak properties, shall we say, depending on how they're used.
Yes, that's amazing that you noticed that and had that insight, because I think especially now there's such a calling for people to do that work,
Mm,
especially in sort of typically male dominated and white male dominated cultures,
mm,
to do the work of emotional intelligence, to do
mm,
the work of recognizing that we can be a powerful corporation, powerful organization, even more powerful when we bring in that compassion, when we allow for diversity and
mm,
inclusion and really come at our business from that heart space and the kakora, the word, I
mm.
love that.
Yeah, I know, it's
The
so
head and heart
beautiful.
space together. That's really where how we build resilient people, and thus resilient nonprofits, companies, corporations, whatever it might be. Yeah, so you're really onto something with that, and I think that's the work that we're being called to do,
Mm.
especially in this time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because it's that part of it with COVID and all the rest of it, because we're so displaced and having to create a new normal, that actually force is not the answer. That actually a lot of it is to seek first to understand, which is that compassion,
Mm,
empathetic piece, to kind of go, well, let's open ourselves up to fully embrace what's going on here before we, barge on in there and say, you should be doing all of this stuff. It's like, well, let's actually just acknowledge what's going on, and validate that, well, we're being human. This is completely natural to have the reactions that we're having. But to be able to see that is actually, this is part of being human. It's not a weakness. It's not something we should hide. It's not something that we should be shameful about.
mm.
And I'm very, very passionate about bringing that in, for sure. And to have
Yes.
people step forward with that actually, and be proud of it.
Yes. Yes. And have that, the other piece of that, the compassion for yourself, which is
Mm,
hard for a lot of people, and yet so important, because oftentimes our forward momentum may get stymied by beating ourselves up or
mm,
judging ourselves. And I have experienced that particularly in the sort of period of, I hope, racial awakening, at least in the United States and all over the world that's going on, is that not judging myself for recognizing the white privilege I have, and just saying, okay, I see it, I'm aware of it, and now what can I do about it?
mm,
Like I extend that compassion and non-judgment for myself,
mm,
and also extending that out to other people as
mm,
well. So yeah, the self-compassion piece in the corporate world everywhere is so key, because again, it doesn't make you weak, it makes you resilient when you
mm,
can extend that same compassion to yourself that
Mm.
you want to extend to other people. And when you think about it, like treating yourself like your best friend would
Mm.
treat you, with that same kind of compassion and love.
Mm.
And that just, it's just a feedback loop, you know.
Mm.
Compassion for yourself, compassion for others, like it just feeds.
Yeah, because it's never helpful to berate yourself. We all do, but it's never helpful. I think that's another practice, isn't it, of actually just kind of almost saying like there to yourself, like when you are having a reaction, to kind of go, it's okay. It's like almost this, again, it's the talk in hand, to kind of go, it's okay. You're allowed to do this, like it's okay.
Yeah.
But actually, what now? Like, so what now? What? So you've acknowledged that you're having it, you've come into your body, and then you can shift more readily out of it. And I think that's that practice piece, isn't it? To kind of know that you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions. You can create more space to be able to really kind of inhabit your whole self as opposed to just a part. I wanted to ask anyone who's watching, if any of you have any questions for Michelle around mindfulness or anything, doesn't matter what it is, then do feel free to add that to the chat. It would be great, like for those of you who join me regularly on a Tuesday live, we like interaction. So if you'd like to have any comments, it could just be a comment, it could just be what's resonated with you, what would you like to learn more about, then please do feel free to type that into the chat. So I guess, I know you mentioned before that you had like a tool for that we could share with people, and I think that would be really lovely to do if you're happy to share that.
Yeah, there's a practice that's been around for a while, and it was originally developed by a woman whose name I think was Michelle McDonald. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. And then has really been popularized by Tara Brach and Jack Kornfield over the years. And it's called the RAIN practice, RAIN, which is an acronym. And the R stands for recognize. I'll go back over these in a minute. Recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. And what the RAIN practice does is, even if you can just get through the R and the A, the recognize and allow, is it allows us to become aware again of what's coming up for us. Where are we experiencing this anxiety, this anger, this loneliness, discomfort? Where are we experiencing it in the body? Just recognizing it. And then asking ourselves, can I just allow this to be, without trying to push it away, to stuff it down, which we're super good at in the Western world, and especially in the United States. Just stuff it down, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Can we actually allow it to just be there? Almost saying, I see you, hello, acknowledging that's there. And then the investigation piece is not an analytical exercise. It's really investigating, how does this feel for me in the body? I'll use myself as an example. Like, I will feel tension or anxiety in my chest. And the investigation piece is saying, okay, and it feels hard and tight and painful here. And as I move out from the center, I can notice that starts to dissipate. And as I get to the edges of it, it eventually dissolves. And in my abdomen, I'm really not feeling anything going on. So it's just that kind of inquiry that is a very kind, curious attention about what's going on in the body without trying to change it. And then the nurture is just bringing in that compassion piece to yourself. And for me, I do this a lot. Like I feel it in my heart and chest, and that's where I like bring myself comfort. So it could just be saying to yourself, I'm sorry. I love you. I care about this pain. It could be putting a hand on your heart or on your abdomen, or maybe just, on your cheeks, or just holding your own hands. Some gesture, words, a physical gesture to bring yourself comfort to what you are experiencing. And so that's a practice that I will admit, I did not like it when I first started practicing it, because I would really get hung up on the investigation piece of it. And now, again, because it's a practice and I have devoted formal sitting time to that practice, then you can sort of get more familiar with it and do it quicker kind of on the fly during your day. So in the traffic example, okay, recognize I am pissed. I feel that in my chest. I feel it in my arms. I feel it in my forehead. It feels tight. Okay. Like I'm going to now tell myself it's okay that that person about cut you off in traffic. It's okay that you reacted angrily. And it's that quick. Again, sort of, and in that space, like I've allowed like 2 seconds of pause and the guy's already down the road. So it's creating that kind of pause, but it is a practice. And I really encourage people, if you try it, to keep trying it and keep practicing and not judge yourself for whether you think it's going well or not. Just let it be however it is. And it's setting the intention that you want to extend that kind of compassion and allowance to yourself.
No, I love that. I love that. And it's got such a calming feeling, and it's such a simple act, isn't it, of like putting your hands on your heart, or even just this, or even giving yourself a hug, like hold yourself. That actually, because we are energetic beings, because there's physicality attached to that it's almost like it's like reparenting yourself, isn't it? That like you're the same as me, our mamas are up there somewhere flying around, that we can actually administer that, nurture that care to ourselves, and kind of just say, actually, you know what, it's okay, like I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here for you. It's like the hands say, like, I'm here for you, because we don't do that. We do that for everybody else, but we don't do it for ourselves, and it's crazy that we don't.
Yeah, just taking that moment to tell yourself whatever's coming up, that this too, like this belongs, because it does belong.
Yeah.
And even just that's why I say, if you can just even get through the R and the A, just recognizing, and if you can hear a freight train, it's my dog snoring beneath me in the bed here.
I can't hear him.
Sorry, very loud. So just taking that moment just to recognize and allow and say, yes, this belongs, and sometimes that can be enough.
Yeah, no, I love that, because it's that piece around that, and even just the way you describe it, Michelle, I'm kind of feeling lovely and peaceful, and like this warm aura of just peace and care. Because I think a lot of the time when we are feeling like distressed or whatever, then we'll look for someone to blame, or we'll berate ourselves, and it almost perpetuates it. And it's back to what you began with when you were talking about the resistance to feeling the pain, that actually it's back to that beautiful equation you shared, that actually, okay, the pain's there because the anger's there, and actually the more you resist it, the more you push it away, going, no, I don't want your pain, I don't want your pain, then actually the more it ramps it up, as opposed to like, and I kind of think of an analogy of like a child. Like if they're having a tantrum or a strop, you would hold them. You would, okay, maybe give them a bit of space, then hold them and nurture them. That's what you would do. So why don't we do that to ourselves?
That's amazing. Yes, beautiful, beautiful analogy. And that I think really helps. That kind of visual really helps when we're talking about trying to extend ourselves compassion. If you are having difficulty in the moment giving yourself compassion because you think I'm a bad person, I'm really screwed that up, whatever it is, imagining yourself as a child and extending the care to that child. And the same goes for extending compassion to others. It's so easy for us to just really lash out or label or have certain opinions about people. And if we can maybe view people and ourselves in a vulnerable state as a child or as nearing the end of life, that really opens up that heart space and allows, just at least for the intention, again, just having the intention to extend compassion can plant the seed. So I want people to be hopeful and encouraged that this is not about telling you you should feel compassion for yourself or somebody else. That can be difficult. And so if it's difficult for you, just set the intention. Like, I want to feel compassion for myself or for somebody else. I'm not there yet. And that's okay. And so just, yeah, maybe seeing them or yourself in some vulnerable state, and maybe that doesn't do it for you today. Maybe you're still pissed. That's okay. You
Mm,
set the intention
mm,
to
mm.
have that compassion, and that's going to keep sort of planting those seeds for something to grow from
Yeah,
there.
no, I love that because it's incremental. And I keep coming back to almost like any muscle that you need to do the repetition. Like if you want a, you know, a strong bicep, you don't just do one. Come on then, why aren't you strong yet? You've got to practice it, right? You've got to kind of build that. And it's the same with it, just doesn't feel as forceful. And I think that's why people get lost off with it sometimes because we're so indoctrinated with this instant gratification of like, oh, well, I've done this once, I want to feel the effects now. But actually, like you say, over a period of time, it's actually very preventative, isn't it? It could you speak to that, Michelle? And even like for yourself, for your own practice, like what's been some of the real like tangible benefits that you found doing some of this for yourself?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And to answer that, I almost need to answer it in the reverse, because there are some real, measurable, discernible effects from disassociating, disconnecting from the body,
Mm,
from that heart space. And those effects are depression, sadness, anxiety, fatigue. Those are real world effects that people experience when we are constantly living up here and reacting. And what happens then is that we turn to things like alcohol, drugs, social media, binge watching Netflix, which nothing wrong with that. That's needed sometimes. It's some level one energy that we need sometimes. But this is again studies to support that when we are disconnected from ourselves and our bodies in the present moment, these are the effects that happen. So to flip that and to answer your question about what are the benefits, for me, what I've experienced, and everybody is different, is I went through a period probably about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, very dark, dark, dark period. And it was through mindfulness and through coaching that I was able to, I don't want to say pull myself out of it, but to really step into it
mm,
actually,
mm,
and allow for it, so that I could open up to the fuller possibility of things. And it's not to say that I don't still experience those dark periods. That's the thing. Mindfulness isn't going to make you perfect. It's not going to make you zen and happy. It will invite you and encourage you to keep stepping into that space where you can just allow for all of it and know that it's temporary. So know that when you're in that dark space, like that sitting in your closet, bawling your eyes out, not caring if you wake up in the morning space, that's what it was for me, knowing that this belongs and this will pass. This is temporary.
mm,
And even if it's 2 weeks or 2 months, it's still temporary.
mm,
And so just allowing. And so that has allowed me the benefits of, I don't, having decreased tightness in my chest, being able to have more civil, patient conversations with opposing counsel on the phone, not flipping off as many people in traffic as I used to, sleeping better, truly sleeping better. Insomnia was a big, big thing for me. And when I am practicing mindfulness consistently, I sleep better. So
mm,
there's some real physical benefits. It's not a cure all by any means. I'm not saying, this is going to fix you.
mm,
It's another resource for yourself to help you be able to allow and exist in the world
mm,
every day.
mm. No, I absolutely love that, Michelle, as you describe, because like you say, and I think for a lot of people, and there's a lot of, life hacks and shortcut this and, 5 steps to blah, 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 and all that bullshit. And actually, let's be honest with some of this. It's actually, it's to do the work. Like, and that's why I think
Yes.
many people, they want the golden ticket. They want something to kind of, I remember talking to somebody about their grieving process
Mm.
and going to a counselor to kind of say, oh, well, so I need to grieve like as quickly as possible. So if you could just like get the experience and then just bring it all the way down just so I can quickly work through it and then get out the door. It's like, it kind of doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. It takes heart and courage and compassion to allow yourself to pass through these gates and this. And I love what you said, step into. It's like, rather than run away from, it's to step into it in a nurturing, loving way, to say, this has got to have something to teach me. This is going to be actually bringing me closer to myself, which is probably, like you say, is going to prepare you for resilience, to give you resilience for anything that comes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so maybe I should come up with an analogy for this, but it's sort of like she is really going to town on her dreams. It's sort of like the deeper you can dig the hole, the better the roots the tree can have. Maybe that's not a great analogy, but it's sort of like if you are willing to do that work, to allow for what is there, to trust that, and maybe even in the moment it's hard to trust that there's an opportunity here. Like, I recognize for some people that can be, they're not there yet, and that's okay. But just trust that wherever you are, it's okay to be there. You don't have to know what's on the other side of it. Just trusting the universal law that everything is temporary. It's all temporary. And when we recognize that, we can sort of just, okay, this is temporary. It sucks, but it is temporary. And incidentally, so is all the happiness and joy and everything else. That's all temporary. So if it's all temporary, it's all worthwhile and beautiful, and it's all worth experiencing. And it's all part of that beautiful journey that we as humans have the privilege to get to experience. So yes, just allowing for that and trusting that it's temporary. It belongs. Yeah. I forgot what you asked.
No, I love that. No, but it's a beautiful, I think we're just vibing off of the fact that it's that stepping into and allowing yourself to kind of go deep within yourself. And I think, I'm going to share a quote that's one of my all-time favorites that I've probably said about a gazillion times before in here. So people are like, oh, she's bringing that one out again, but it's true. Which is the treasure you seek is in the cave you fear to go into. Because I think many people are scared to go into that cave, the dragons that live in our subconscious of like, a worse and what could possibly happen, when actually that dragon in that cave that you're scared of, it just wants your love and attention. That's all it wants. And so it has more power over you the more you run away and ignore that it exists. And I think that's the antithesis of this, to be able to kind of know that you are the dragon is you. And this is a chance for exploration to go there.
Yeah. Tara Brach has, I'm not going to try and do the quote, but she has a quote that the gist of it is that anger is really an intelligence. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Anger is telling you something. So the more we try to stuff it down or run away, it's like trying to run away from your shadow. We've heard that analogy. It just keeps following you. So we may think we've stuffed it down or gotten rid of it or ran away from it. And that's what we call mindfulness, a spiritual bypass. When you think that I got over it. I don't think we're here to get over it or go around it. We're here to go through it. And so anything else is a spiritual bypass, because believe me, it'll come back, and it'll come back with a whole lot of other stuff too. So it will catch up with you. And so just, again, that allowing for it allows it to kind of, I love the dragon part of it, because when you love something, when you put the light on it, it takes the power away. And Rumi, the poet Rumi, has a beautiful quote that keep your gaze on the bandage place. That's where the light comes in. And that's so true. It's so true.
No, I absolutely love that. I really, really do. Thank you for sharing that. My lovely sister's been commenting. Hello, Catherine.
Hi,
she
Catherine.
talks, she's saying that everything you're saying resonates with her. So thank you for sharing that. So my beautiful sister's in New Zealand, so it's her early morning. We're truly international on this channel. So she talks about yoga and breathing is her go-to. The practice soothes her and allows her to cope with all the pressures that life throws at her, you know. And that, I mean, I'm super, obviously a big fan of my big sis, but I'm super proud of her because she makes her yoga practice a non-negotiable. I mean, she's incredibly busy bringing up two beautiful girls, you know, quite a significant job, you know, all the things, but she makes it that, you know, that practice. It's back to that actually space, to that mind-body connection of actually letting that just be. And I know that really helps her. So thank you for sharing that, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. That's amazing. And congratulations on being able to keep that as a non negotiable. That's really important.
Yeah, especially with the news that New Zealand's just gone back into lockdown, so they've closed all the schools again. They were doing so well. So
I last I'd heard they were doing so well.
Yeah, it's just happened literally in the last 24 hours. So yeah, it's these things, but that's back to the resilience, right? That this actual practice can get you to a place whereby you are then able to be in that chaos, to whatever life throws at you. It's like, I've got this, because it's all gravy, it's all meant to be, and I actually have a choice on how I inhabit that space, how I respond, how I kind of be to do that. So
yeah, and it's not taking anything away from the trauma and fear and death that people are experiencing during this pandemic, and yet also recognizing, as we're sort of trained, allowing yourself to sort of sit with the question of, what is this asking of me? What is this calling me to? This global slowing down, this global message from the universe, I think, to say, okay, again, going back to that, universe is banging on the door now to say, if y'all don't want to slow down, I'm going to make you slow down. And so, yeah, asking, what is this asking of me? What is my part in this? What can I take from this for myself? And so, yeah, for people like Catherine, if you are able to make that a practice, that is amazing. And for people who struggle with sort of developing a practice, my encouragement to you is to, of course, be gentle on yourself. Don't judge yourself for not being able to have a routine. And just, if you're just starting out with mindfulness, just starting with even a minute, you know, sitting down or lying down. You can also do walking meditation if you're really struggling with just being still. You can do walking meditation by just focusing on planting one foot, planting the other foot, but just finding some small way to start. Going back to your bicep analogy, you don't have to lift a 100-pound weight at first. So you don't have to sit and meditate for 20 minutes in the dark with a candle. If you want to, awesome. But just practice a little bit at a time. And again, trust that you're exactly where you're supposed to be in your practice. And if you miss a day, or if you think you're not doing it right, it's okay. You can do it again tomorrow. Just try again tomorrow. Just keep trying. Just keep beginning again, is my sort of encouragement for people.
I love that, Michelle. And you were born to share and teach this stuff, because I already just feel so much calmer. I really do. Like, just the fact that you're you know, just giving permission. And I think the invitation, it's not that it's, you know, right, wrong, like you say, it's just suggestions and invitations to try it and to experiment, right? To do all of those things.
Yeah. And I truly believe that. I mean, look, as a white girl growing up in rural Nebraska in a trailer by the river, like, if I can come to mindfulness, a lot of, I won't say it's for everybody. I believe everybody could benefit for it, but I recognize that some people may just say, this isn't my thing, and that's okay. But I truly, you know, hope that people can see from my example that, if she can do it, I can do it. I can at least give it a try, because there's nothing special about me. So
Well, I disagree with that, but but yeah, we're all special. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing, isn't it? You're walking your talk, so you actually practice this of what you teach. That it's a practice that you do. So if people wanted to find out more about you, Michelle, what you're up to, and because you do workshops and all this good stuff, like where would people come find you?
Yeah, thank you. On Facebook, And Instagram, my business is Life from the Summit, all one
Nice.
word. And on LinkedIn, I'm Michelle with one L, Michele, L Walter. And the website is coming soon. It will be lifefromthesummit.com. So that should hopefully be up in the next few weeks or so.
Cool. Well, we'll make sure that all those links go in the feed so people can come and find you. And as you probably have all heard, Michelle is amazing. And so if you want to learn more about mindfulness and develop your own practice, or you have any questions, then I'm sure Michelle would love to connect and to answer anything you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on here. Thank you for just being you and for putting out into the world what you're putting out, and for encouraging people to really make that choice. I really see I see the good that you're doing in the world, and I just really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. I miss that. I tell you what, I miss living in the US where that's a phrase, because in Britain it's not. That I appreciate you is not a phrase, and it should be, shouldn't it? I mean, it's so
get on that.
Yeah. So right, we're going to start a trend, British people. I appreciate you. I honestly,
I appreciate you, Britain.
Yeah, but we don't like, and I don't know whether it's just because we're a sarcastic bunch. Like when I first had that said to me in Arkansas, I was like, what? Like, you appreciate me? What? Like, are you kind of, are you having a laugh? Are you taking the mickey out of me, kind of thing? And they were like, no, it's kind of, no, I mean it. And you're like, oh, okay. Oh, thank you. And it's that thing, right? But I love it. So it's lovely to hear those. So thank you. Well, that's it. We've been on for just over an hour, but
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
No, I've loved it. I've absolutely loved it. Oh, Lou's added, what a lovely phrase. I appreciate you. Love it. Yes, Lou, let's spread the new phrase.
Absolutely.
Oh,
yes.
Well,
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you everyone who's been watching. And like I say, we'll make sure that all of Michelle's links go in the comments section so you can go find her. But wishing you all a fantastic rest of your week, packed full with choice and packed full with mindfulness. If you can just take any little snippets. In fact, I'd love for any of you to share any key insights, anything new you've learned, whatever that is, then please do share, because this is sharing the love, right? Sharing's caring. And if you think this would benefit other people, don't let me stop you sharing this video. So please do. But thank you again, Michelle, and I'll catch you.
Yes. Stay well, everyone.
Yes,
thank you.
You too. See you, everyone.